I know, I know. This white sword. Here they are. Oh, shoot, you probably seen her.
And then away we go. Okay. Good day, good evening, good morning, hello, and howdy. We have we have been continuing on in this theme of the fall called Mission Matters, where each Sunday we're taking time to do a little more of a deep dive into our mission partners and our various ministries. So when you think about Rally Day, you can go to the different booths around the gymnasium, and you can get quick little elevator pitches on them. What we're hoping to do through this fall and what today is to do a little bit more deep dive in a few of them. I thought it appropriate and it make good sense that on All Saints Day, a day we remember to not only have died before us, but also the legacies they leave behind and the legacies that we will leave behind, that it seems good, right, proper, and important for us to highlight a few of our internal mission ministries. Namely the Hope Memorial Garden, where we concluded worship today, the Generation to Generation Endowment Fund, and then also one of the things that we have been pushing for and striving for the last 12 years, and that is for all the members of the church, while they're still upright and breathing, to complete a funeral planning packet. So I'm going to talk about that at the end. We're going to hear from Jamie for the Hope Memorial Garden, from Leon with Generation to Generation, and then I'm going to talk about the funeral planning packet. But let's begin with a word of prayer. Gracious God, we give you thanks for the beauty of this day, for the many gifts that we have already received within this day, and for the many more gifts that are still laying in wait for us to discover. We pray that you would be with us in this hour and that you would help us overcome any sense of fear that we may have of death, but to look forward to it, and when the time comes, to do so with courage and with the assurance in our hearts of the promise of the resurrection. We pray for those who are on our hearts today, those who are living with you in the heavenly realm now, and that we might be mindful of what they have taught us about faith, but that we also would be mindful about what we are teaching others about faith and the legacies in which we leave behind. We pray these things in the name of Jesus the Christ, our Lord. Amen. So let me invite Jamie Walker to begin with us and to give you some information about the Hope Memorial Garden. You're welcome to stay there if you want, or come up here. What would you prefer? Okay, I'll adjust the camera. And to share with us about the Hope Memorial Garden. And I'm trying to figure out which of you members were here prior to the creation of the Memorial Garden. So the Hobbies were here prior to the Memorial Garden. And Diane was here. Were you here before you weren't here before the creation?
No.
Yeah.
No, I was not here before.
Okay. So Jamie, I turn it to you.
Okay. I'm going to give you a little bit of background on the Memorial Garden. I realized half my committee's here, so they know, and people who've been here since the beginning already know most of this, but I will start at the beginning because many of you probably have no idea how it started. The dream of the Memorial Garden began to take shape in the summer of 2002 under the leadership of Reverend Karen Bry. A spot for the garden was selected. The space was formally dedicated as the Hope Memorial Garden in September of 2002. The Session of Hope designated the Memorial Garden as a consecrated space for the interments of the remains of current and former members, their spouses, parents, children, grandchildren, ministers, and employees who have served HPC. So many people are welcome in our garden. It is a place of natural beauty and comfort for the families of those loved ones and those seeking a space for contemplation. A planning committee led by Reed Hobby developed a master plan that was implemented with the participation of the Men of Hope back when they were young. The committee and the other committee members and their spouses and congregation volunteers. November of that year, construction began by the Men of Hope and the other volunteers. The two large berms that are out there were put in by them. Loose rock retaining walls, 3 patios. Initial plantings were added, including the 2 huge ball cypress that are out there now.
Which you didn't think would grow.
Didn't think would grow out there, but and the.
They're going to be
Fake.
they will be the tallest trees on this campus someday.
Keep our fingers crossed. Drought doesn't get us. The myrtles, the Texas mountain laurels, the center of the garden that's surrounded by the walkways was planted as a wildflower meadow. Everything, including an irrigation system, the west pergola and benches, were completed in 2003. Men of Hope and other volunteers provided maintenance in the garden. In 2004, a year later, a new committee was formed under the leadership of Fred Morgan in Town Drive, Pastor Fred. They formed the committee to develop internment policies. How would things work? How would we handle those sort of things? And plan for an installation of a remembrance wall. The purpose of the remembrance wall is to commemorate those who have been interred in the garden. And Hope member Val Huger designed a remembrance wall, which was completed in 2005. After a few years, though, many committee members moved away and the garden failed to flourish, let's put it that way.
That briars.
Yeah, it just didn't, yeah, just not enough people to take care of it and all, so it did not do well for a number of years. In 2012, a new committee was formed, determined to restore the garden. And with generous donations and G2G grant, we're very thankful to G2G because they have helped us many times with grants for hardscape and landscape enhancements. So we've been very fortunate that way. But a landscape architect was hired to create a new plan. Another generous donation came in and we were able to contract with a lawn company for the general garden maintenance. We paid a lawn service to do all the work in the garden. It is not done by our custodial staff. Our campus is way too large for that to happen. In 2017, thanks to a bequest from Beverly Duffy, the HMG committee established an endowment fund that's held within the G2G fund. I'm sorry, Diane. I don't know.
I can hear you just fine.
Back. Okay.
It's okay.
And this is held within the G2G fund, and it's slowly grown to the point that we are now receiving small dividends every year that can be added to our designated fund and used for minor garden repairs or enhancements, plantings, things like that. It's our hope that we could grow this fund to the point that it would cover our lawn care. We do not have a budget. We are a subcommittee of building and grounds. And so if all our money comes in through donations. And we do have a designated fund that is bolstered by donations. And we used to always keep at least 2 years worth of lawn care in our designated fund. We're very careful with that money, make sure we always have it. But in recent years, lawn care has skyrocketed and we've not been able to. We have been very fortunate this year. B&G wrote us into their budget. And up to this point, so far, they paid, keep my fingers crossed, we start a new year in January. But hopefully, they have covered our lawn care, which is now $6,500 per year. Can you imagine paying for lawn care? But this is mowing, it's edging, it's blowing, it's light pruning, it's.
Being down the mulch.
The big thing is the mulch. They fertilize and then they mulch all the flower beds and the big berms every year, once a year. So it's a job. But anyway, so and we do not charge for interments in the garden. It is free. That plot is free. So we rely on that donations and our friends at GUG. So I will say that the HMG addresses the call to discipleship by being a physical space of beauty on Hope's campus that ministers compassionately and silently to both our congregation and our neighbors in the community. The garden provides the congregation with a place of comfort and reflection that's always open and always accessible. One of the things, we never want to put a fence around it. We've talked about it, thought about it because of some issues we've had, that we want it to be an open place, always accessible. Lives are remembered and celebrated in this sacred space. It also serves as an outdoor worship space and a place for individual prayer and contemplation. It's open to the community for visitation and meditation, and we often have visitors. I can't tell you how many times I've been out there, or I know Reeve has met people out there, Ellis there, anybody who's been in that garden has met somebody who's walking through or sitting reading a book or waiting there to pick somebody up. They love it. I was just a couple weeks ago, I was out there and I was speaking to a lady who was now a member of our church, was at Bethany, and she's now at our church. And she said, and she was on her morning walk. She said, I've always come through the garden for years, before I came to this church. She said, I've always come through on my morning walks because it's such a nice place to walk and to spend some time. So many people use our garden. Our neighborhood of deer love it. They spend much time in the garden every single night. We can attest to that. There's always evidence. And they always, unfortunately, they like to eat just about everything, which makes it really hard to maintain plants. But we try hard. The committee, the HMGC committee, we consider ourselves trustees of the garden. We are committed to sustaining the current beauty and integrity of the garden. We oversee the design, improvement, and enduring care of this sacred space. Plants and hardscape for the garden are selected and installed by the committee in accordance with our master plan. We follow the master plan. We try to stick to it and not veer off and add something over here or something over there that was not ever part of the original plan. We always welcome new members to our committee to help us make those sound decisions for the garden. I promise I won't make anybody pull weeds. Not everybody on our committee works in the garden. Most of us are gardeners at heart, but whether we do physical gardening, that's not a skill set that's required. It's just a place that beauty and a place that needs people to make good decisions about it. We do have one huge help, and that's our group of volunteer waterers that we have recruited over the years that help us throughout the summer. When I say summer, I mean April to November because of the drought. And because our campus is so large, our irrigation system just can't handle as much water as we need, especially when we are on water restrictions. One day the water.
We have something like 37 zones
Yes,
on this
and
property.
right,
And we, as you all know, the city of Austin only allows us to water once with the
Right.
irrigation system.
once with that irrigation system. So you can imagine those little sprinklers pop up and run 5 minutes, and then they go to someplace else. We can't get enough water on things. So our volunteer waterers they're not members of the committee necessarily. Well, some committee members water, but not everyone. But there are other people from the congregation who sign up and come 2 or 3 times over the course of the summer. It's usually a 2-hour job, 2.5 hours, just to hand water plants. We have hoses and things, and just to hand water the plants when it's really hot and there's no drop of rain inside. So that has been a wonderful help to us, and we really appreciate them and all the help they've given us. I'm trying to think if there's anything I have missed. I do have brochures I'm going to point out. What I will say, in the brochures, it gives some information about it. If you're interested in having an interment there or for yourself in the future or for a family member, interment arrangements must be made with a current HPC pastor. A service does not have to be held at the church, but only an interment service is required. So you have to have a pastor present at the interment itself. I've had people ask me all kinds of questions like, how do you know where these spots are? Because we don't have headstones. Well, we have a grid. The garden is divided into a grid. So we know where we have a list, and we know where people's remains are being put throughout the garden. As for the cremains, no container is used. We put them directly into the soil. They go back to earth. There is no cost for that plot. The only cost is if you wish to have a nameplate put on the wall, and those are costly. We get them from Fast Signs, and they make them for us. And you don't have to have one if you don't want it, but the cost on those has gone up quite a bit this year. When I first started on the committee, which I think was 2015 or around there, they were charging about $100 and a quarter or something for those plates, and they're now up to about $400. All right, well, let me blow your mind more.
Hey,
The big plaque
Yeah.
that they're attached to, when I first started on the committee, those were around $1,100 to $1,500 for the big plaque. The last one we bought, which has been, I think 3 years ago, 2 or 3 years ago.
I think at least 3 years. ago.
Yeah.
Which came out of our designated
It
fund.
came out of our designated fund, $3,000. That sort of thing is very expensive. And with tariffs and things, the materials they use and everything. So you can see why our little designated fund, gets a drain on
It
it.
needs money.
It always needs money.
it needs to be watered.
We're doing okay right now, but it's only because Building and Grounds has been able to help us. They've tried to help us in the past with our lawn care. But unfortunately, an air conditioner would break down or something, and they'd have to buy an air conditioner and couldn't pay for the lawn care. So we have a great lawn care team. I mean, we're really pleased with the work that they do, but, and believe me, I took bids, so I know the price is comparable all the way across, so. But it's just one of those things that it's unfortunate, but, anyway, like I said, we do get donations. I recently replaced a pergola out there, but those are on full warranty. Didn't cost a thing for the pergola.
Except the shipping.
Well, $400 for shipping, $450, but I had to spend $4,000. That's why we got a grant, my last grant, to cover hiring someone to tear down the old one and rebuild. Plus he repaint or restain all the other pergolas. And so that's expensive. It used to be Bill Albrecht used to build them.
I was gonna say,
And Bill can't do it now, so.
I was gonna ask y'all, and we'll pivot to G to G, but
Yeah.
I was gonna ask, if any of you in that space, the time that you've been here, have a memory, or something that has been, special to you about that space that is beyond the brochure. And for me, one of them is, I don't know, it was before COVID. and coming out and seeing Bill Albrecht on top of the pergola with no safety equipment, ripping boards off, replacing, and me going, "What are you doing, Bill?" He's, "Oh, I'm fine, I got this." And to God be the glory. There were no injuries. He was fine. And I'll also say that I think when I arrived, they may have they for sure would have completed phase one, and then very early on showed me here's all of the different phases, and found that to be just an incredibly beautiful vision, a marvelous gift to our community, and what a joy it was personally that my father died 30 years ago last Thursday. And my oldest brother kept his ashes for 22 years. Never opened the box that they were shipped in. And a couple of years after I began working here, my brother, I was able to say with him, I think Dad never knew I was going to be a pastor, but I think he would have been proud that I am, and that I'm serving a church where his ashes could be. And we brothers agreed, and we were able to inter those ashes. I think it was like 10 years ago today, in the memorial garden. So it's a very tender and special sacred space for me as well. Do any of y'all have any special or tender memories of the memorial garden that you'd want to share?
Well, when the Men of Hope were a younger bunch of guys, it was an incredible chore to build berms. The dirt was delivered somewhere in the vicinity, but then we had to shape those berms, and those rocks are heavier than all get out. But again, we were younger then, and we did it.
You did it. It used to have a water feature in it.
That's right.
Oh, really?
Yeah, we actually.
Yes, it was like a rock back there as you're, looking at that single bench. It was right out there and the water would stream down.
Yeah,
Lovely,
drop
but,
into a reservoir and then get recycled.
right.
I don't know who has the original watercolors. I think Joan maybe had them in an auction or I think Tim Duffy has one of them. But in the plans of what the memorial garden would look like, Joan Salvant designed for the Memorial Garden Committee as a fundraiser. We sold note cards of her watercolors, and the water feature was featured on one of those. And it was nice to have that water, but we couldn't,
Had to be manually filled.
Right.
it didn't work. It didn't work. So that had to be eliminated. But originally there, and then we have some photographic note cards if you need some nice note cards.
Yes, I do. Josh told me I could even bring my note cards in here, but I thought, well, I'm not going to sell note cards today, but we do have some pretty note cards. Most of you have seen that are photographed in the garden, that we'll take a $10 donation for a 10-pack of cards, just a little more as a designated fund, but.
That's not for you.
Any other thoughts or comments, questions on Memorial Garden? Yes, ma'am.
Is there a limit to how many souls can be in the garden?
No.
No.
So she was mentioning about there's a grid system, and
yeah.
I don't remember the total number on the grid. If you did one per spot on the grid, I don't remember the total number, but the way in which this was designed was if you started on the east side of the garden and you followed the grid all the way to the west side, by the time you got to the west side, the east side of the garden would be ready to have more ashes.
Okay.
Once again,
That makes sense.
we have not made it through the whole grid in
No,
about
not
15
my
years.
years.
We're like
Okay.
halfway through in 15 years.
We do have over 50 souls in that.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So there's lots of room. It sounds so weird to talk about it that way, but
Yeah.
In
lots
my
of room.
mansion, there are many rooms.
That's right.
Right, and it's we do have a roster of not just the people who are insured, but of their family members that we contact occasionally because we let them know that we're having All Saints service and an even song servant.
I had a nice visit with Marcy Metzger's daughter
Oh,
today.
really?
Yeah. And so
Oh, good.
Marcy Metzger is someone who's been her ashes were interred into the memorial
I know,
garden.
right where they are.
And her daughter was here today, and Glenn has recently died, and we're going to talk about interring his ashes. And sometimes folks will have those ashes put in the same spot. And so, you know, that the ashes of 2 or 3 may be gathered in one area. So, thank you, Jamie. Any other thoughts you want to add before we transition?
We had the original pergola that was on this east side, the big one, the Karen Greif pergola. This was when Karen was working on her doctorate, and this was a project of hers, I believe, is why it even began. And someone had either donated funds for that or whatever, I'm not quite sure, but we always called it the Karen Greif pergola. Well, it finally just was falling apart. And so we purchased a pergola. That didn't come under warranty. We paid for that, but I have a wonderful committee with deep pockets, as well as many other people, volunteers and congregants who donated money to buy a new pergola, and we had a scout, an Eagle Scout, do it for his project, and he paid for 20% of the cost.
He was a boy who was a part of the youth group. Yeah.
Right, he'd been involved with this church for a number of years, even though not a member. But he wanted to do that. It really spoke to him to do that. And so.
And his father had died.
Had just recently
a year
died.
prior to the project. And so he felt that was also a way for him to do something tangible in memory of his father as well. Right. And what I would say about the garden, for me, I spend time in cemeteries because we have a son in a cemetery, and so I'm out there occasionally, and it's nice and it's quiet, you know, it's a cemetery. This is not a cemetery. This is a place of celebration and joy and peace. And you don't worry about where you're walking, putting your feet, you don't, well, except for me, I stepped in the ants out there today in the grass. But you know, it's a whole different feel for me. Cemetery to this. Cemeteries can be lovely. There's nothing wrong with the cemetery. This just has a real connection to our faith, you know, and all. So and our neighborhood and everything else. So for me, that's kind of an important thing. Not to mention an environmental stewardshipness of it all, where we are not taking up ground with caskets and concrete.
Lots of headstones
stuff and or a columbarium. And so I am someone who does not like to get muddy, but that is my favorite kind of muddy to get. Is when we're doing an interment. There's something just incredibly beautiful about that. Let's pivot over to our Generation to Generation Endowment Committee. And Leon is our current serving convener. And would I say what? Did I do something wrong? Oh, good. No.
Okay.
Just fine. Perfect. So Leon, as a convener, tell us about G2G.
Okay, well, the presentation may be a little bit different.
You do what you need to do.
All right.
Yeah.
So I'm Leon Schmidt. I've been on the G2G committee for almost 2 years now, and I am serving as convener. First thing I want to say though is to save the date. In case I get cut short here, January 28th is a Wednesday. G2G is hosting a lunch and learn on legacy giving. Is that still on the calendar?
You
Okay.
heard there was no such thing as a free lunch? There is. That day.
And so this event will feature a speaker from the Texas Presbyterian Foundation, and hopefully she'll be focusing on estate planning for us. So January 28th.
And since you said that, I'm gonna, for those of you who would like, these are some packet brochures from Texas Presbyterian Foundation, which is where our endowment is. And she may have some of these handouts. Inside of it, you will find the funeral planning packet that I'm going to go over, as well as the Memorial Garden brochure. The one that's in here, the planning packet, is I think a little older than the most recent one.
These were from when we did a Life Matters class about 2 years ago.
So let me start by passing those out around.
The brochure in those probably doesn't have
I'm sure that,
all the names of our current committee.
correct.
And I tried to swap them out on some others.
It's awesome, it's that room as well.
All right, so anyway, Josh had sent out an email Thursday, talking about this meeting and presentation. And for some of us on G2G, we said, well, wait, Josh, this is a little bit short notice. Sarah kept saying, well, Leland, call Josh, call Josh. So I called Josh. And Josh assured me that I didn't need any grand presentation or anything. I could just get up and talk,
Just do your thing.
which was beautiful. Because I got to thinking about this room
Okay.
that we were gonna be in. And so my presentation was this picture right here.
Drawn by Joan Craig.
Yeah, Joan who?
Joan Craig, Joan Cook.
Good.
Joan Craig.
She was Joan Craig when she did it.
She was Joan Craig and did it.
But you know, and I hope everybody in this room, probably maybe, I don't know, Ryan, maybe. Depending on how old you are, that you've been in this situation. As a parent, grandparent, maybe great grandparent, maybe a sibling. To where there was an infant child who felt confident enough or secure enough to grasp your finger as an adult. So, and kind of one of those things, think back and kind of how did that make you feel? You know, that's one of the most awesome feelings, I think. And again, I'm not any kind of an art critic, but I kind of want to, I think there are a number of things happening in here. First off, there's got to be love. There's got to be love from the parent to the child, or the adult and the child, and then from the child back to the adult. And I think there's trust and security being exhibited here too. This infant has got to feel secure. This infant has to have trust in that adult to reach out and take care of that handhold right there. Now, what about the adult side? What kind of legacy does this adult have? You know, do they come from a family with a strong family name, strong heritage? Hopefully this adult is very honest and strong in integrity as well. So, and you know, maybe there's a family business to be passed down here. Maybe the child will inherit grandpa's 57 Ford pickup or something like that. So what kind of legacy though is on the adult side that they can pass down from that generation down to next generation? And so that's kind of where G2G is. That's where the generation to generation. All right, so if any of y'all, practically everybody in this room, you've been at Hope for a long time, a number of years. And so there's a number of phrases here that, you know, should sound familiar to you. Of course, the Generation to Generation Fund, or the G2G Fund, Heartbeats of Hope, Grant, and Emily may have to help me. Is it giving now and giving later?
Yeah.
Or is it legacy now?
Either way.
Because I've seen it both ways. So I never really quite knew which
You
way
can
to
create
read.
your legacy now by starting with Heartbeats of Hope, and you can create your legacy later by thinking about hope in your estate plan.
Exactly. So, probably most of you know, back in 2000, there were some great, 2001, some great visionaries of hope established this Generation to Generation Fund. And this is a perpetual endowment fund, like Josh mentioned. And it provides funding for various missions, programs that need, or even capital needs around campus. And the whole point behind it is that these are needs that are outside of the operating budget. So, and like Jamie alluded to, you know, we provided grants for the pergola repair and many others. So, and the earnings, we generally only use the earnings. When you contribute to the Generation to Generation Fund, that goes, your donation becomes a principal within the fund and is used for investments. And again, these investments are held by the Texas Presbyterian Foundation. It's not like, well, there's 4 of us in here on the committee. It's not like we're day trading left and right trying to up the value of the, no cryptos. Indeed. So only the earnings from the fund are made available for distribution. So back to then maybe the next thing, how do I contribute? Emily mentioned Heartbeats of Hope. And there's kind of one of the things where we can sit here and say, well, we all have 2 things in common. Hopefully we all are having a heartbeat right now, and then we all have a birthday. And so the whole premise behind Heartbeats of Hope is that when your birthday month comes around, you donate $1 for each year you.
That's our
invest
hope,
with
that it would be $1 for each.
$1
less.
Yes.
But you could get $5 a year.
Yeah, you can, you have anything you want.
Anything you want. And you will not turn it away. And you can celebrate other things besides your grandchild's birthday, an anniversary, somebody's graduation, something in memory of maybe someone who's passed. You know, you can write G to G down on the corner of your check. We also have envelopes in the pews designated for G to G. So there are a number of ways to contribute. Hopefully there are plenty of reminders when this birthday comes around. Hopefully we don't forget our birthdays. But there's an email that goes down on your birthday month. I think you did a birthday card from the deacon. Second Sunday, there's a poster set up in the narthex with everybody's birthday things for that month. It's in the church newsletter. Pastor John makes an announcement on GT on second Sunday. So should be, plenty of reminders. In January, we kicked off a 50 for 50 campaign, and that was, since it was Hope's 50th anniversary this year, which is wonderful, that we were trying to encourage or challenge the congregation for 50% participation in G2G donations. We kind of had some good months, some bad months. Right now we're kind of sitting around 37% participation. So, there's a couple months left. So if you missed your birthday, you still got time to make it.
Never too late to get, never too late.
Another phrase is grant. And this is the process of trying to distributing the earnings. So in January, committee will meet, our financial secretary, Andy McFarland, we'll do some calculations. He'll have the statements from Texas Presbyterian Foundation. But we'll determine how much money are there funds available for distributing, for going through the grant process. I believe when COVID hit, I believe that was one of the years that there were no distributions made.
There's a formula so that we never dip into the capital in the fund. We only use income from the earnings. And so we have to, the committee has created that's the guidance and some goodness to financial people on the committee, formulas so that we won't do that. And Andy's anticipating that we should have about the same amount of money for 2026 grants as we had this year, which ran between $30,000 and $35,000 in grants.
Right, exactly. Thank you.
Well, I want them to know that we don't make up a
Right,
formula
exactly.
every
We
year.
don't. No,
Possibly.
and exactly like Emily said, yeah, there is a formula, so we have cushion there to where, yes, we are not going after and digging into the principle. January and February is when committees within the church, this is our grant proposal submission time. So it's coming up pretty quick, for 2026. And so, got an idea, a project within your committee, or if you're just an individual, hey, I got a great idea for such and such. Okay, maybe that falls to buildings and grounds. Go talk to that committee. Go talk to one of the respective committees to help with writing that grant. In April, our G2G committee is going to get together. We will evaluate the grant proposals, and we'll determine which grants we will approve. I don't know that I guess we have denied one, or at least definitely one that I'm aware of that we pushed back on. I suspect it will be resubmitted again. But
sometimes we're not able to fund a grant fully. So and when those of you who've done grant applications, you're asked for a minimum amount and a maximum amount. And so we try to stretch our money as far as we can. And so we might give a lesser amount than but it still helps get things going.
so some of the examples, Jamie here, was talking about Hope Memorial Garden of Pergolus. And as I'm the liaison for buildings and grounds, each committee member is a liaison to one of the committees on the church. And we do follow up with these grants. How is the project progressing? Have you used the money yet? Things like that. So I got a great tour from Jamie and Reeve last month after Men of Hope meeting. We've supported Senior Drive Northwest, the new greenery in the chancellery area, chancel. There in front of the choir, that's all new greenery. Kenda, with
Supporting
John
campers.
Lee, and we did support a camper, and then a number of things for that grant went to help with the pride events, Leander and Round Rock, I think. So Women's Storybook Project, we've supported that one quite a bit. Have I got enough time to read something here real quick for a storybook?
Last one.
We get thank yous from everybody all the time. But this is from an incarcerated mother. This is part of their Bambi project, which is kind of one of their new ones. It's Bambi is for babies and mothers bonding initiative. And this lady writes, "Thank you so much for this program. It has helped me connect to my children, even though I am behind bars. The books alone give them something to look forward to. My son is learning to read, so this really helps him want to learn." And it's signed an incarcerated mom. So the fruits of G2G are,
Supported Josh's doctoral initiatives.
Yeah.
I was gonna say, this is coming to you if you're dialing in on equipment that was purchased by a G2G grant.
Leon, I think it's interesting that we're almost at $500,000 since inception that we have given.
that we have
grants.
given out, yes,
I mean, I think, I don't know when this was updated, but
yeah. They're like,
we're right at 500,000.
We've given more money in grants than is in the fund. And I think that is something that is remarkable, that it is not a, hey, let's just collect it and keep the money to ourselves. It's no, how can we best leverage this? I'll tell you that for a lot of churches, the endowment fund is a lightning rod of controversy. And I am incredibly grateful for the stewardship of this church, the ways in which it's gone through various iterations. There was a time period when it needed to be in a growth phase, so there really wasn't anything to yield off. And then as it moved out of a growth period and began generating grants, it went through the growing pains of what does this now look like? But never did anyone take their feet off of the gas of, how do we best be faithful about this? And in its current iteration, over the last several years, it's been, how do the grants that we are distributing in alignment with the mission and the values of us as a congregation that we have identified? If you're ever on the grant approving team, and you have all these grants, many years, there's more grant money being requested than there is money to be given. There is a rubric that they pray over and examine as far as for fitness of it being in alignment with the mission and the values of our congregation and where we think God is calling us. And so it's probably one of my favorite meetings of the year, is seeing them go through that discipleship process of how do we best distribute these funds in a way that is most faithful to the gifts that have been given to the congregation. There's one question that sometimes folks will ask, and I want to go ahead and just answer it without it being asked, which is, great, there's $500,000 in the G2G endowment. How about we just go take 200,000 of it and do something big and wonderful for the church, or we'll use 200 grand and we'll go, I don't know, put in a new toilet in Pastor Josh's office or something. I don't know. It'd be a gold one. And here's the deal. Here's the deal is that these are the stewards on that endowment committee are very fiduciarily responsible for the gifts that have been given by people who are no longer with us. And we respect and honor the work that these stewards, these guardians of that trust, do on behalf of the congregation. There is a disconnect there a lot of times between folks who say, well, gosh, man, we can't afford the air conditioning in room 105. Why don't we just go over there and, borrow money or use this as a savings account and take care of things. But that then becomes disingenuous with the intent of the money that you give it and for what it's there to do. And so that's a real growing edge for a lot of congregations and becomes that lightning rod of controversy for others. I've seen it divide churches and others and be used as a form of power. I've seen it where the endowment team operates as a secondary session where we're making decisions about how we're going to spend the money. The session may not agree with it, but we're going to do it anyway. And it just becomes this tussle. And I am grateful that this church, I think, and I hope when TPF comes, I think they would say it too, that we've sought their counsel, we sought the counsel of others, and we do a very good job, and the integrity of our process is strong. So I'm really grateful for the work that, again, it's gone through various iterations of growing pains, but I think it is something now that is a tool of unity in our overall larger call to mission. Do you have anything else you want to add?
The only thing would be to touch base a little bit on including G2G in your estate planning. Like we were saying, create your legacy now, also maybe leave some legacy later. And that's hopefully what our speaker will cover. But you can leave whether it's in your will, your estate plan, you can name us as beneficiaries on things. There are a number of gifts that we could accept, but probably one of the biggest things though is before including generation to generation in your estate, please contact one of us committee members. Because depending on the gift, we would probably like to consult with Texas Presbyterian Foundation, probably talk with you as well, and then always during your estate planning, please consult your attorneys. We are not estate planners, but we would definitely gladly accept a gift and especially, end of life.
And work through the process with you. accompany you
Yes.
During that
So we
process.
get the wording correct, get everything set up front, so when the time does come, assets transfer without any problems, any difficulties, things like that. And another thought about that, I just.
Talk to your family.
Tell your family.
And then I'll just add, this year, two members of our, the current GDG team will be rotating off. And so they'll be looking for two new nominating committees. So if it's something that interests you, talk to someone on the committee or, express your interest to the nominating committee that you want to participate on GDG.
I captured my thought. As far as estate planning goes, my understanding is that there already are families who have considered G to G in their estate.
It's on the steward, you can check on the
Yeah.
stewardship card.
I've included in my state, and generally each year when we do the pledge giving, just a simple checkbox. Have you included G to G in your state, or would you like more information? And there's always on ramps for us to talk about that. When you think about it, churches are not always the best at engaging its members about estate planning. And the institutions that are great about it are alma maters, colleges, universities, etc. And yet you've spent more time and more intimately related to your home church than the 4 years you spent in an alma mater. And so I think that's one of the goals of the G endowment about bringing to mind estate planning is there's a way in which you can continue on the legacy of our church mission from one generation to another. John, we'll circle back to the hand. So thank you, Leon.
You are.
I want to put this in everyone's hands, and so I'm going to pass it out. If
New
you,
and revised, yes.
this is December of a year ago, and this is the most revised version of the funeral memorial planning package and worksheet. And so what was in the folder was outdated, and there's still good stuff in it, the old copy, but the new copy has some updated information. Hear this as a word from your pastor. I want you to fill this out. This is not a grim, macabre exercise. Think about it as this is how you give a gift to your family during one of the worst moments of their lives. Let me walk you through that. When there is a death in the family, especially a death that is not anticipated, that is a trauma and a crisis that gets compounded by administrative crisis and trauma. The family is scurrying to find out, well, what are all the bills? How do we talk to the bank about checking accounts? How do you declare someone deceased? And phone calls to the retirement packages and the government. And there's all of this administrative work that has to be managed during death, which is a compounding trauma and crisis. There is a financial crisis that happens with a lot of folks at the time of death, which is, okay, my loved one died. I have no money to pay for services such as a funeral home, cremation, et cetera, et cetera. And when my father died 30 years ago, we three brothers came with literally our pockets out at the funeral home, and they said, "You'll get your dad's ashes when we get our money." It is a predatory time and of that industry on the deceased. And there are many funeral homes that have good integrity, but they're all for profit for the most part. They're there to make money off of you. And that is not the time that you want your loved ones going through a financial crisis as they're grieving. And they're really good at selling you the gold-plated casket when you are at the most emotional. They're not all manipulative and in the sense of playing on your emotions. Didn't you love your Aunt Emily? Don't you think she deserved the very best? Why wouldn't you want the platinum package for, they're not all like that, but there are many who are. So I want to be clear-eyed about this, with all of you. If you can and are financially positioned to be able to go ahead and pay in advance for your funeral services and packages, you can do that. And I can help you find places in town, especially the crematory services for less than $1,000. You can go ahead and pay for that and have it available so that your family isn't having to scrounge around for that on top of grieving your death. This isn't such like prepaying for your funeral services. The planning packet is also a gift that you give your family as they're going through process. They are having to do all this administrative work, and now they're going through saying, well, I don't know what scripture verses to pick. I don't know what hymns mom and dad like. I don't know if they wanted to be cremated or buried or in the memorial garden or off of I-35 in Pflugerville, or, they're going through this wild processing of emotions and trying to do funeral planning at the same time. Now, in the last 10 to 15 years, the process of engaging families who are grieving has changed. 15 years ago, when someone died, all of that work of funeral planning was within 2 to 3 days from the time of death to the time of the service. And in the last 10 to 15 years, more people have chosen to go through the cremation process, which can take 1 to 3 weeks, depending on the time of the year. And I know that sounds weird, but in winter time, January, February is some of the high demand of crematoriums. A lot of folks will hold off through the holidays, hold on for the holidays, and into the new year, will move to heaven. And so there is a time process there. We can do a service without a body. When you have a service, witness to the resurrection without a body, it is called a memorial service. When there is ashes or a casket, that is called a funeral. And in the 12 years I've been here, I think I've been to a cemetery graveyard experience 7 times, maybe. Predominantly, most folks, 90% of the time, are going through crematory services, and it is also something that I would recommend, biblically, theologically, and practically. Because of that, the time between death and when the service is has also increased from 1 week to 6 months. And finding a time when everyone can be together, can travel in together, and that's why those services, there's sometimes a big gap between death and when those services are. If you are encountering the trauma of death with someone in your family or a friend, please, please, please know that you can give them my number, and I would be more than happy to walk with them through the process. I try to always get a hold of families before they go to the funeral home, and to encourage them that they are allowed to say no to the funeral home. They are going to a la carte financially everything they can, and we do, just like we don't charge for internment into the memorial garden, we don't charge for funeral services. There are honorarial gifts that we allocate for the leadership of the funeral, but we don't, the funeral home will charge you $1,500 to use their chapel and their facilities, and there's no charge to use it here at the church. It is one way in which we live out the mission of our congregation. But I will be more than happy to walk with you or any of your neighbors or your family through that process and to help them better understand. In my role as a chaplain for the Cedar Park Police, I'm really only called out on death, and I'm meeting with people who are, what do I do now? How does the Williamson County Coroner and Justice of the Peace get involved? And that also is a time of a lot of complication and confusion. And I'm happy to help and walk through that process as well. This gift, this packet, both explains what the packet's about, the memorial service, why we go through and do the planning that we do, some information about the memorial garden. On page 5, there is an obituary template. That's a new addition I added this last year. Many folks have never written an obituary before. And not only is there a hyperlink there, but there's some information that you might want to include in the process of writing an obituary. I've also included some information, a page on page 7, offering a remembrance of life or a eulogy. And I always strive to draw people's attention to that, because a eulogy or remembrance of life is not a public reading of an obituary. For us, we print the obituary in all the bulletins. Get up and have read an obituary doesn't really fit liturgically or as a worship element, because it's already in the bulletin. You can read it for yourself. What we're striving for there is how does Reed capture the essence of the Christian character, the Christian faith, of what made Bobby Sue who Bobby Sue is. And so I included an article here by Rabbi Evan Moffat about some ideas of what that looks like. As you get on page 9, you'll see here is the general outline of the service that we do here at Hope. This isn't universal for every place you go, but it is how we outline and go through here. This is I can give this to you in a Word document. If you ever want this in a Word, you want to type this stuff in, great. If you look at page 11, you can identify, here are people that I would like to have speak. I may put down, I want Reeve be the person to represent the family, and then some other check boxes there, or people who you want to read. If you look at be a part of the worship leadership, we're at page 12 and 13. Here are a laundry list of Bible passages that are appropriate at the time of a funeral or memorial service, but that does not mean you are beholden to them. And so what's not on here is, well, never mind, it is Matthew chapter 25, 31 through 46 is one that I would like. And so, I would either check that box or I would write in my own, whichever you prefer. The similar thing is on page 14 when you look at hymns. Nick Bolts has told me that I cannot have 15 hymns. You need to whittle it down, bro. But at the same time, I think that I may have included for both the scripture and the hymns that, I leave it at the discretion of the pastor or the director of music to make those selections for what best fits the situation. And then on page 15, just some general information. Do you have you made pre-arrangements with either a plot at a cemetery or for memorial garden? For cremation? Do you want them to be ashes interred in the memorial garden, et cetera, et cetera? This is all fill in the blank. And then as well as on page 17, lots of times, as a custom at this church, in lieu of giving flowers, please take that amount of money and allocate it towards a memorial gift directed to, a lot of times as default, it's set to the generation to generation endowment. Or you may designate it to some other things,
With Memorial Garden Endowment Fund.
or the memorial garden. And then on the last page there, is basically, here's where I have things filed. So Reeve fills this out, and he gives this to me as pastor that I hold in high security and confidence. And I want to conclude this by just sharing a story of a time when this really helped. We had someone who had died, who had two sons. The two sons did not talk to each other. They were at loggerheads with each other, locked horns, loggerheads, for many years before this man's death. And while they had some anticipation that the death of their father was coming, they weren't really fully prepared upon on the day of his death. The gentleman had made pre-arrangements with regard to all of the financial costs related to death, as well as had completed this in total and filed it with me. So the time came for us to sit down in my office and for me to talk to the two sons, the brothers, about the service. And I knew the tension that was coming, the divide that was coming. And they sat down, and both of them were coming with a sense of power positioning. It's going to go my way. I want it to go this way. I want it to go this way. And as they sat down, and I was able to bring out the photocopy of this and say, it has already been planned. We're here today to talk about your dad and what he meant to you. And that was it. All of a sudden, there was a transformation in the room. The two brothers who had been jockeying for power and position, and now that had been taken away because dad had already left them a gift of saying, I just want you guys to come and to grieve and to remember the legacy. They were going to end up getting into loggerhead over the finances. But when it came to the theological aspect, that was done. And what a gift, I promise you, what a gift it was to me as a pastor. I promise you, but what a gift it was to those two boys. And at least from that moment and through the end of the funeral, I got to witness them engaging my brothers could, should, and would, versus this thing that had preceded them that was bringing about this disunity. And so I just can't stress enough how I think important it is to your family to have this on file with me. I know it seems like an odd exercise to go through, but I promise you, think of it as a true gift to those who will be grieving you after you die. What questions might you have about this or through that whole process?
Well, Emily and I have already done this and submitted.
I have to
Just-
revise mine.
Yeah, I'm gonna go through this one compared to the one that I had already provided to see what changes are. Is there any way of indicating on here, I guess the date alone right here will indicate this is the current one?
So I just
Superseding all
met with someone this fall who did a revision, and they brought it in and they said, here's the newly revised, and brought the paper copy, signed it, and that became the newly revised. And I have that still with the first edition as well as the newly revised.
Okay.
So I'll keep both of them and date stamp them appropriately.
Okay.
So I think that's helpful to see, well, this is one area where they were thinking, and here's how that evolved. I think the gift, I'd say 70% of the time that I'm working with families that don't have this, the families are struggling to figure out what scriptures make sense. And they'll say, you just pick it out. If you think about from one generation to the next, a lot of times those children and their grandchildren aren't engaged in practicing their faith on a regular basis. And so then this feels very foreign to them. Does that make sense?
Just do it, everybody.
I will, so as long as the photocopier will print, I'll always be glad to give these to you, to give to your neighbors. There's no secret proprietary whatnot here. I once witnessed a family be financially violated at the time of deep grief to the tune of $26,000, which is not an abnormal number. They can go there and much higher. And I was so angry at the funeral home for preying upon them at this horrible moment in their life. It's my own personal belief and impetus to make sure that you and your family do not have to go through that process. And anything we can do as a church to help educate the neighbors and your friends, your circles, I will speak till I'm blue in the face. But it does not have to be like that. Okay.
I've been working on this electronically because I didn't have enough space to write it.
Yes. Well, I have the Word document.
Yeah,
and
you
so
said.
good. I can send it to you in the Word document, which makes it much easier on these eyes to interpret. Was that Josh or Job? Is that 17 verses or 71 verses? So if you want the Word document, your friends want the Word document. If you got someone who lives in Nebraska, send it to them. Please. This is a gift to everybody. Diane and then
I'd like a Word document, please.
well, I'm not gonna remember today, but email me and I'll send it to you.
Contact you.
Josh, I think it's, I had to write Chuck's obituary, which was one of the hardest things I ever did. So I would say if you have an idea of what you want and in an obituary about yourself, I would say to put that down as well.
Yeah, even a rough draft for them.
Even a rough draft, I mean, you
Yeah.
know, that's, your son's not gonna remember you grew up in Tecumseh, Nebraska. I mean,
It is
that's
hard research. It is hard research, absolutely. When they're grieving.
Chuck a little outline, but it wasn't, not nearly enough. But,
Yeah.
and I will also pass on that I made arrangements with a place called, and it's a wonderful name, it's called Affordable Cremation. And that was the name of the company, and they were extremely, I think, less than $1,000. It's been 9 years ago, so I don't know, but.
I will tell you this, in the city of
It's still
Austin,
the same.
and I'll tell you this based on that, because I found out about it was through y'all. In the city of Austin, every year is published, all funeral homes and all crematoriums in the city of Austin every year submit their full pricing to one report. And that report is a full grid of the pricing for everybody, fully transparent for the whole city of Austin. And I keep copies of that so that as I'm encountering somebody who's trying to figure this out, I can slide them across the table and says, for as few as little as $500, as much as $50,000. Here are all your options nearby, including affordable care and Neptune, I think it is. And then there's also a green crematorium where, as those ashes are produced, they're also incorporated with a tree, with tree seeds. So that as the ashes are, I got to make sure that you're not doing that. We don't need a third spike that's going. But there are those out there, and it does not have to be $7,000, $8,000, which could go up like that real quick. I thank you for your time. Thank you, Jamie and Leon, for sharing with us about these ministries. there are more folks who aren't here than are here, so please, here, who's that thing? Please share this with others, and I will always be glad to sit down and talk with anybody about this. So, could I get someone, Ron, would you mind closing us in prayer today?
Let's pray. Gracious and loving God, God who gives us life, God who gives us passings. Thank you for all the saints' days, all that have gone before us and for us in the future. Pray that you help us to be diligent and discern through your Holy Spirit the ways that you are calling us to live and the way you are calling us to die. The ways that you will help us prepare gifts for our future and for our families. Go with us now through the rest of this day and help us to remember the saints that have gone before us. Pray this all in your name. Amen.
You know, I had one thing that made me think about the family who I felt was violated financially. In their grief in getting this bill, they lamented to the funeral company, and the funeral company said, well, it sounds like you need to pass the hat around at the funeral. And that since then I've learned isn't an uncommon sentiment of you can take up a collection during the funeral when you use the chapel, we'll have our employees go around and pass a plate and whatnot. And so that again is why this was really personal for me. We're not passing a hat at the funeral. So God be with you all.
Also, wait here.